In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make your first-person character be able to shoot. Alright, so there's my cube character right there. And what we need to do is we basically need to spawn an object that'll act as the ammunition right near the character and then fire it forward. So the way we do that is we do that with an object called an empty object. So I'm going to left click my mouse, do Shift A, and I'm going to come down here to empty, and I'm going to choose plain axes. So an empty is basically just a point in space. It can't get seen, which is why it's called an empty, but it can do a lot of really powerful things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it basically, go into top view here. I'm going to put it basically right here in front of my camera. Now, of course, if you wanted to make it look like your character was, left-handed or right-handed, you could go ahead and, move it to that right spot. Okay, so there's the empty right there. Now, when my character moves around, I want the empty to follow it, so I need to parent the empty to the cube. So the way we do that is we select the empty first, then we shift right-click, select the cube, we press Control P, and we choose Object. So now the cube, if I grab it and move it around, you'll see that the empty moves around with it. And that's because the empty is a child object of the parent, which is the cube. Okay, so now we need to create our ammo. So I'm going to press Shift C just so I can center my 3D cursor. Okay, so I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to add in a mesh, and it's going to be a UV sphere. Now when you add in a new object, down here on the left hand side, in the bottom left hand corner, when you first add in an object, you get a bunch of settings for the object. And if this is going to be ammo and I'm going to fire multiple versions of this object into my world, I probably don't need it to be this detailed. It doesn't have to have this much geometry. So you can see right here segments and rings. So I'm going to go ahead and take that down to about 12 and 12 for both. So that takes down the geometry pretty significantly, and you can go ahead and experiment with that and basically make it lower poly if you want. Okay, so that's it. Now watch what happens to this toolbar over here though. Once I grab it and move it, rotate it or scale it or anything, that ability goes away. So if you miss that, just delete your sphere and make a new one, and then you'll get that panel back up. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here to the right hand side. I'm going to go here to the little orange cube, which is called the object panel. I'm going to name this, and I'm going to call it ammo. There we go. I'll go to the material panel, I'll add a new material, and I'll call it ammo matte. And I'll come down here to the diffuse and I'll give it a color. I'll go ahead and make it purple just so it stands out. There we go. Alright, last but not least, I think with the ammo selected, I'll come over here on the left hand toolbar, and where it says shading, I'll choose smooth, just so that way it's nice and smooth. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it over towards my cube, and it's clearly way too large. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press S and scale it down and make it about that size. So you can really see that the geometry really doesn't matter at all. It's much smaller now, so it's pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to move this to another layer. We don't want the player to see this until they actually left click and shoot. So I'm going to take the ammo selected, I'm going to press the letter M, and that's going to bring up the move to layer prompt. And all these little boxes are layers, and there are 20. So currently I'm on layer 1, so I'm going to click on layer 2, and the top row is 1 through 10, and the bottom row is 11 through 20. Okay, good. So how do I now hook this up? So first of all, I have to go to layer 2, and your layers are pictured down here below your 3D window in all the boxes, and you can see 1 through 11 on the top row, and 1 through 10, and then 11 through 20. And you'll see that on my layer 2, and I know it's tiny, there's a little dot there. And that dot basically means that you have data on that layer. So I'm going to click on layer 2, and there's my ammo. Now it's black because there's no lights in this layer, but that's fine. That's totally fine. So what I want to do is I want to basically get this ammo back here to the center of my grid. It's generally just a good idea. Things generally work better. So to do that, I'm going to press Option G. And when I press Option G, now the ammo is at the center of the grid. So there it is there. Now, here's a really important thing with the Blender game engine. If you press the letter N, you'll get the toolbar over here on the right. And generally, this is good for Blender in general, but it's really important with the game engine. When you press N, if you come over here and you see that there is rotation on your object, something other than 0, 0, 0, and if you see that the scale is something other than 1, 1, 1, if you see a change in any of those 6 areas, you're generally going to then want to press Option A, or sorry, not Option A, Control A. Sorry, Control A. And when you choose Control A, it's called the Apply menu. And what I'm going to do is the Apply Transform. And I'm going to choose Rotation and Scale. And when I do that, you'll now see that my scale says 1, 1, 1. And my rotation says 0, 0, 0. And what that means is Blender knows that this is now the normal resting size or scale of this object. So it's really, because when you press play and you go into the game engine, Blender needs to know the true size of the object to be able to handle physics and all that kind of cool stuff. So it's always a good idea to press Control A and choose Rotation and Scale and just set things right. Okay, so now that I've set the proper scale and the rotation, now we can go ahead and hook this all up. So I'm going to go back to layer 1, and I'm going to select the empty object because that's going to be my ammo spawner. Now I can rename my object, my empty object, by coming over here to the little orange cube, and it's called an empty. I'll just call it ammo spawn. Okay, and I'll save. Okay, so with that set up, I'm going to come down here to the logic editor now. I'm going to add a sensor. It's going to be a mouse sensor, and it's going to be a left mouse button. And then I'm going to come over here to the actuator, and it's going to be an edit object actuator. I'm going to hook those up. Alright, so I'll zoom in. So the edit object menu is set to add object, which is what I want. I want to add an object right here where the empty is. The object I wanted to add is ammo. And so this is a really good reason to go ahead and actually name your object. Okay, so that seems pretty good. So if I go into camera mode, actually let me get out of camera mode so you can see this better from this angle. Alright, so if I now press play and I press my left mouse button, you'll see that I'm able to spawn all of these spheres right in front of me. But of course, ammo isn't going to help you if it doesn't actually travel. So how do we do that? Well, the last step is I need to go to my ammo object in layer 2. I'm going to select the ammo object, and I'm going to add an always sensor, and I'm going to add a motion actuator. And I'm going to wire them up so that way it's always got motion. Ooh, that's weird. Okay. Sorry, having some mouse troubles. Okay, I think I'm back. So I'm going to wire these up. There we are. Okay, so let's look at the actuator. I want it to travel in the positive y-axis towards the green arrow. And the let me just check my character. My character is moving in the y-axis. So there we go. Okay, so I'll select my ammo, and I'll come down here, and I want it to move on the y-axis. So I'm going to type in. I'm going to try 0.2. And press return. I think that'll be okay. Okay, so I'll go back to layer 1 now, press play, and now, oops, press play, and now when I fire, you'll see it actually fires. So it's going a little slow, but I can change that real quickly, and that's pretty good. Okay, the very last step is my ammo will stay in my game world forever because I haven't told it to die. I'm going to go ahead and speed that up to 0.4. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to collapse these, and I basically need the ammo to die after or go away after a certain amount of time. So to do that, I'm going to do a delay sensor, and for actuators, I'm going to do an edit object actuator, and I'm going to end the object. So after a certain amount of time, after a certain amount of delay, it will end the object. So the last step in this tutorial is right here, the delay. This number here, which is currently 0, is not measured in seconds. It's measured in ticks of the computer. So you have to remember that your computer is operating at 60 ticks per second. So if I type in here, if I type in 90, that's basically going to be a 1.5 second delay. So that means that that ammo should disappear after 1.5 seconds. So if I press play now, you'll see it goes, and then it disappears. So it's flying faster, and then it dies after about 1.5 seconds of travel time. So that's really good. Keeps my game nice and fast, and it's good. Of course, you can go ahead and change any of these numbers, but that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.